Jesus is trying to teach us that our prayer should not fit or get God to fit within our desires. Friends, hear me this morning. God is not a genie for us. We can't just summon him and expect for him to give whatever it is that we want. It's not how it works. He's not someone who we are to approach only when life gets hard and we need a quick fix in life. He is Father, yes, so we come close, but he's holy, so we come with reverence. And to say it another way, Jesus reminds us that God is closer than we realize, but he is also at the same time greater than we could ever comprehend. And what we need to understand this morning, right here and now, is we need both of those truths at the same time.
How many of you love to reminisce about earlier times in your life by looking through old pictures and videos? If you're anything close to my age, or even a little bit younger, we love to do that, right? Look back at the past. For me, I especially love to do this with my 3 daughters. As much as I love my relationship with them now, there is just something about remembering what they were like as young girls when they needed and wanted their dad with them in the good times and the bad. You know, I coached their softball teams, the memories I've had, Christmas time, so many things that I had on video, Disney, all our trips, our family vacations. In fact, I always tell young parents, you cannot take enough video. Every year I'm going through video and watching the same videos over and over again when the girls were little, and it's so much fun. It's like, I wish I had more. I wish I could remember those times a little bit more. I mean, think about the power and the might of our God. In the beginning of our Bible, it tells us, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. He created everything we've seen. If you've ever been to a mountaintop, any of them, if you've ever been to the Grand Canyon to look at it, middle of the ocean, think about how vast this is, and it's incredible that one God created everything that we know. And that's just on this earth, not counting the universe. In fact, we see this kind of explained in Psalm 19 that says, the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day, they pour forth speech. Night after night, they reveal knowledge. They have no speech. They use no words. It says no sound is heard from them. Yet their voice, it goes out into the earth. Their words to the ends of the world. In the heavens, God has pitched a tent for the sun. I mean, just think of the majesty of those words that David's trying to get us to understand. In fact, we can get a clear explanation of this in this clip. I saw this in the book Crazy Love by Francis Chan. He goes, did you know that a caterpillar has 228 separate and distinct muscles in its head? I didn't. You see, that's quite a few for a bug. The average elm tree has approximately 6 million leaves on it. And your own heart generates enough pressure as it pumps blood throughout your body that it could squirt blood up to 30 feet. I don't suggest you try that. Have you ever thought about how diverse and creative God is? He didn't have to make hundreds of different kinds of bananas, but he did. He didn't have to put 3,000 different species of trees within 1 square mile in the Amazon jungle, but he did. God didn't have to create so many kinds of laughter. I mean, think about the different sounds of your friends, your friends' laughs, right? Some wheeze, some snort, some are silent, some are loud, some are obnoxious, right? Well, how about the way plants defy gravity by drawing water upward from the ground into their stems and veins? Or did you know that spiders produce 3 kinds of silk? When they build their webs, they create 60 feet of silk in just 1 hour, simultaneously producing special oil on their feet that prevents them from sticking to their own web. In fact, most of us don't like spiders, but 60 feet an hour deserves some respect, right? Did you know that when you get goosebumps, the hair on your follicles is actually helping you stay warmer by trapping body heat? Or what about the simple fact that plants take in carbon dioxide, which is harmful to us, and produces oxygen, which we need to survive? Whatever God's reasons for such diversity, creativity, and sophistication in the universe, on earth, and in our own bodies, the point of it is all to his glory. God's art speaks of himself, reflecting who he is and what he is like. That is the picture of how we need to see God. He is in control of everything and knows everything about us at the same time. And as great as he is, we're still to call him our Father. Isn't that beautiful? So the scripture that we're looking at this week that Jacob preached on comes from the Sermon on the Mount, and we're looking at Matthew 6, verse 9, starting verse 9 and 10. And this says, it starts off, this then is how you should pray. Now, he's not telling you have to pray this. He's telling you this is an example of how we should look to God to prayer. And Jesus starts off, our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I wanted to point out some commentary from David Guzik, who states, our Father in heaven, when he says that, it's the model prayer shows us to come to God as a Father in heaven. It rightly recognizes who we pray to, coming with a privileged title that demonstrates a privileged relationship. And that's what we've been talking about in this study, right? It was very unusual for the Jews of that day to call God Father because it was considered too intimate. The theologian Carson says, there is no evidence of anyone before Jesus using this term to address God. So Daniel, let me ask you a question. This is going to be challenging. Jacob gave us all a quiz in his sermon this week to show how forgetful we as humans can be by giving us history questions. I got to say, I don't know about you, I did not do so well on the quiz, just grading my own work. So I'm going to ask you some sports-related questions to test your memory as a big sports fan. So can you tell me the last major sports, just last year, who was the last team to win the Super Bowl, the NBA championship, Major League Baseball, World Series?
Well, the Super Bowl, it was not the Patriots. It was the Seahawks.
Okay.
Last year's NBA was the OKC.
Mm-hmm.
Hockey, you said?
I didn't say hockey, but I want to see if you can get it. Yeah.
I don't know. The Vegas Knights. I know it wasn't them, but I don't know. What was the other sport you said?
Baseball.
Baseball?
Yes.
Oh, the Dodgers.
The Dodgers.
Yeah.
Actually, it's really good. I have no idea on the hockey either. So we'll just, maybe somebody will look it up. But it goes back that we are forgetful, right? I know especially us husbands can be. Jacob tells us Jesus effectively is showing us that we need to begin with adoration and thanksgiving. And that's what we're looking at today. Ultimately, we need to begin with remembering who God is. And we sometimes don't do that. Then we remember who we are or who we're not, which is his creation. Intimacy with God is what we're looking at. The Lord, L-O-R-D capital, is God's personal name. When we talk about hallowed, I know Jacob says most of us don't use that language anymore. I don't know anybody who uses that language, but it's talking about being holy, honored, sacred, set apart. This is our God. We may explain this as asking, Father, may life reflect on the holiness of who you are. That's what we're saying. Actually, one of my devotions last week from Glenn's Devotions had this little part of this prayer. And it says, the opening of the Lord's Prayer, which Jesus teaches his disciples in Matthew 6, 9 through 13, is traditionally rendered, Our Father, who is in heaven. Well, I don't know if you knew, the underlying Greek of that second phrase is en toi androis, literally in the heavens. As far as you know, that's how it's pronounced. Most scholars agree that Jesus isn't instructing his followers to address a deity who is somewhere far off, tucked away in a corner of a cosmos. But rather, the true meaning of his opening words is, Our Father, who is right here with us. Think about that. A perspective that has the potential to revolutionize our thoughts and feelings at the beginning of the Lord's Prayer. Now I want to share some humor. We need to have some fun. I saw this top 10 list of some of the funniest kids' prayers overheard. So we're talking about prayer. And sometimes I love how Jesus welcomed the children and being innocent, being honest. And sometimes we can be honest like these kids here. So these are some of the top, these are some of the top kids' prayers that were overheard and written down. Dear God, my mom tells me that you have a reason for everything on earth. I guess broccoli is just one of your mysteries. Next one, please make my parents understand that if I don't eat salad, I do better at school. What about this one? God, please forgive me for hiding my sister's favorite doll, and please don't tell her where it is. Or the next one, dear God, I need you to make my mom not allergic to cats. I really want a cat, and I really don't want to ask my mom to move out. The next prayer from a young child, dear God, can you get me a smartphone? Santa must have forgotten. Or what about this? Dear God, I saw my big brother walking out of the shower on accident. God, can you erase that from my brain? Or this one, dear God, when will my sister stop being annoying? I'm down to my last patience. And a few more. Dear God, I promise to never say those words again, at least until my next shots. Number 9. Dear God, please don't let it rain on Saturday. The first ball I hit will be for you. And the last prayer, told by kids, overheard and written down. Dear God, I hope my dog is with you in heaven. Please take care of him. Sorry if he chews on your sandals. So Jacob reminded us the why behind Jesus' teaching of how to come to God with prayer and why we begin with God. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. So before I tell God what I need, I remember who he is. And that is all about adoration. You see, adoration is when we turn our eyes toward God and remember, you are God, I am not. You are holy, I belong to you. You are Father, I am loved. We are reminded that God is not small. God is not distant. God is not powerless. God is not unaware. He is Father. He is holy. He is near. He is Lord. Daniel, what were your key points and thoughts from Jacob's message this week?
Yeah, I think a couple takeaways to remember from the message are the closeness of the Father and having the relationship that we have with God, of God wanting us to be close to him. I think also the reminder of how we see a lot of modern Christians like the yelling at on the street corners and people who are just accepting of everything. I think the reminder of needing to exist between the justness and the mercy is something key that we need to take into consideration as Christians.
That was so good. I kind of forgot when I was writing this about the second part because, you know, he used that. He was talking about how you can't be the person who's all about God's rules and all about God's justice. But it's not all about just the love of God and we accept everybody where they're at. It's a combination. They work together. You can't have one without the other, which is the whole point behind grace and truth, right? It's the same way. You see, I've shared about this, I think, a little bit in the past. I do a daily prayer every time I wake up in the morning. What I do is I don't turn on the phone, I don't turn on the radio or the TV, which often I do throughout the day. But in the morning when I'm getting ready and until I'm done, I do a prayer. And I've adapted it over the years. And it's one of those things, it's just the way I pray. You don't have to pray this way. But in that, I've learned to adjust it based on teaching that I've heard from Pastor Dan and now Pastor Jacob and others. And I start off, dear God, instead of hallowed be your name, how holy you are, how great you are. And then I even say, you are the great I am. And so I go through this myself, and then I go through thanking him for so many things in my life. Then I ask for forgiveness. Then I pray for certain people. And then I ask for wisdom because I know God grants wisdom. So and before I even ask of things that I need, healing that I'm asking for, or people that need help, or things that I need. But I do this as a way of acknowledging him first, and I think that's so much of what we're talking about today. But like I said, don't copy mine. But I would encourage you to do this because Jacob mentioned this today as he ended his sermon. I'm going to end my talk the same way. I would encourage you, whether you write it down in your phone or somewhere, which is going to my phone, to use the following statements this week to better understand God's greatness. In fact, I would do this every day because if you do this every day this week, I can almost promise you this will turn into a habit that you don't have to look in the notes. You'll continually do this because you'll put this into your brain in your way of acknowledging God. Number 1, look at the adoration of God. Father, you are blank. What do you want to put in there? I'm going to put in there, Father, you are holy. You are perfect. And then the second part, we first had adoration. Now we're going to look at the thanksgiving. Father, thank you for blank. For me, thank you for your forgiveness. Have a great week.
Like and subscribe.